Good evening. Welcome to Talking Politics. I'm your host this evening, Mia Scanga, and tonight you're going to be meeting one of the candidates who's running for mayor of Jersey City. The incumbent, Steven Fulop, was invited. We exchanged emails. I spoke to his assignment secretary at City Hall. Never did hear from his campaign manager, but over a period of a few weeks, nothing came of it. But you will be meeting Bill Matsikoudis, who's the former corporation counsel under former mayor Jeremiah Healy, and he's going to be telling a little bit about us. Now, don't forget to vote. The election is Tuesday, November 7th, and the polls are open from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Please take some time to review your sample ballot because it's going to be a monstrous ballot. We have the gubernatorial election, the freeholders, the mayoral with 35 candidates, 33 running for council. And we have the Board of Ed and several referendum questions. So you really need to review it. And if you're really frustrated by it, you can thank Mayor Fulop and his misinformation on selling the idea of moving the election to November. So Bill, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Mia.
You're quite welcome. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your slate?
Sure. Well, the slate would take a while. We have 9, but
Right.
but I will mention a little bit briefly about them. I'm an attorney, and I have an office in Jersey City with a partner, and we focus on public interest type of law, but mainly plaintiffs litigation. One of our passions is environmental litigation, where we sue basically corporate polluters to compel them to clean up contaminated sites. So, for example, we sued DuPont, who had contaminated a parcel in Newark, and it was sat there vacant and a drain on the economy of Newark and a threat to the health, and we sued them and, on behalf of the city of Newark, and got them to clean it up. Before that, I was in public service for over a decade. You know, public service is the thing that is most fulfilling to me. It's why I'm running for mayor right now, and it's why I left one of New Jersey's most prominent law firms when I was 30, Wilentz, Goldman & Spitzer, to go work first in the governor's office, then as a deputy attorney general, and ultimately as the city attorney of Jersey City for over 8 years, almost 9 years. And so I was born in Jersey City, lived here most of my life, and I have a deep love, deep ties for the city. Not really crazy about some of the things that have been done in the last 4 years. We got some serious problems, the homicide rate that's doubled.
Well, we'll talk about all those separate little issues because I've got a
on.
whole string of questions and we're going to be
Looking forward to it.
we're going to be running out of time. And some of the issues are current that have been, in the news recently. Talking about crime, one thing that really concerns me is we had 7 police officers so far who have pleaded guilty for not actually doing off-duty jobs or collecting the cash directly from the corporations. What are your thoughts on all this off-duty, which has turned out to be very big money for police officers? And I really believe, and I mentioned this once to a police officer, that I wouldn't be surprised if some of them are doing some of these jobs when they're calling in sick. And he assured me, no, they had one person checking all of this. So obviously their checks and balances are not very good. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? I think it has, an impact on whether they're focused in on the crime here in Jersey City. More concerned about making extra money on off-duty jobs. And some of these officers, they're making $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 extra a year on top of their $115,000, $120,000 salaries. And that also goes towards their pension calculation. So we're going to pay dearly for all of this. What are your thoughts on it?
That last part I'm not so sure about, but the pension part. But more to the point of this scandal, I think the off-duty work in Jersey City has been an ongoing problem. I know when I worked in Jersey City, there was a lot of effort to deal with some of those issues. For one thing, it's a burden on people that are trying to get work done in Jersey City, whether they're small developers or big developers.
Or even homeowners.
And homeowners, they frequently have to pay a lot of money. And that to me has always been problematic. I know that some of the individuals that have been caught up in this scandal were actually flagged and brought off of this type of off-duty assignment in the previous administration when I worked there and underneath the former chief. But They were by and large big-time Fulop supporters, and of course the chief of police that he put in originally was one of his top political aides and strategists, and they were put right back in. You know, ironically, as the mayor frequently does, he distorts reality in such an extreme way with smoke and mirrors, where he says, we're cooperating with the authorities. No, the people that were arrested, many of them either contributed directly or they went through straw contributions. It's very well known in the police department. People who were his drivers. And it's an example of not only his distortion of reality, but also his sad politicization of the police department.
Right, I understand. No, and also there's another issue too, which goes hand in hand, is these payouts, like $512,000 to the police chief when he retired was $512,000. So you got them doing all these off-duty jobs, which there are no controls. Who knows if there are any real controls on keeping track of sick and vacation? I have no sense of that they do, because I've known people to work at City Hall and they were way behind the times in terms of technology. Someone said to me they use paper and pencils to keep track of this stuff. And we're paying out millions of dollars for that. There is some legislation now, because I think the last one, the state has said enough is enough. I mean, what do you see your administration doing on trying to, kind of corral this? It's out of control. And then the crime is out of control too in certain areas.
Well, I guess there's a correlation between the two issues. But first, with regard to the sick leave payouts, the people when they had not utilized sick leave, we can't blame Mayor Fulop for that. Obviously, that was in place for as a consequence of state legislation.
But a lot of other municipalities have put caps on it.
No, they cannot. I mean,
New Brunswick has a 30.
Contracts.
Yeah,
they
have a $30,000 cap on it.
Yeah, but the contracts that these people were benefiting from, right, were contracts that were put in place many years. So these people are now benefiting.
Yeah, but the contracts come up for renewal, so you change the terms of the contract.
Yes and no, but my understanding is that when there's a person like who's retiring, so Mayor Fulop was extremely critical of this. Some of these payouts that took place, I think some of them were during the transition period between Healy and
they've been going on for years now.
And Fulop. Yeah, but I'm talking about the headlines that were made then, and he was going to look into it. At the end of the day, I'm sure if he had his ability to nullify it, he would have. But these contracts that accumulated the sick leave for over 25 years, they took place many years ago. So it's not simple to walk in and nullify it with an executive stroke of the pen. Having said that, I think you said the state legislation is the key. So people are upset about this around the state of New Jersey. I believe in fairly compensating law enforcement. I'm sympathetic to them. They have an extremely tough job. My brother was a Jersey City cop for 25 years. And he didn't get one of those big payouts, by the way. But this is ridiculous, right? We all know these things are absurd.
Yeah.
Although they were contractual, and
the record keeping is absurd. I mean, they had someone said to me who worked at City Hall in the 80s, says they use paper and pencil to keep track of this stuff. They weren't really, and now we're paying their current salary rate for days they said they didn't take in the 80s and the 90s, and the accounting systems at City Hall are poor. We would, because I know for a fact with the tax abatements we lost millions of dollars. But no, there's legislation pending, and I know certain cities like the city of New Brunswick, they capped it years ago, and they did it through their police contracts.
Yeah, so I think an important thing to say there is, when Chris Christie was elected governor, I was never a big fan of his, right, on either in any of his official capacities that he's held in his career. However, he worked across the aisle in his first term with the Democratic leadership to pass some legislation that a lot of public employees were not happy with. And as someone who was a public employee at the time, but was also in management, I thought was good. Healthcare contributions, there's the arbitration cap. These things, to me, gave tools to municipal government to restrain sometimes the out-of-control cost of paying for especially uniformed
That's the biggest part of the budget.
So I was in favor of that stuff. I think it was very helpful at a time when we needed it, because at the same time Christie was providing these tools, he was also slashing aid to cities and all kinds of and municipalities in general, but especially cities.
Yeah.
Some of it we had no choice. It was the Great Recession. So, and you saw a lot of police actually, especially higher ups, leave as a consequence of it, which is one of the reasons why, as Fulop points out, when he became mayor, there was the police department numbers had gone down pretty heavily.
Yeah, but it was always top heavy, though. The police department was always noted for being top heavy. I remember that years ago they were talking about it. And I remember we fought one time a promotion where the mayor was Jerry McCann, it was that long ago, where he wanted number 25 on the list, his buddy, to be promoted. So they had to promote 1 through 25. They didn't need them to go.
Happens.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
Here's how you address that.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things. First and foremost, you're top heavy. There's different, like my brother's class of '81 was the biggest class in the history of Jersey City, I think, and maybe for a short period of time you had a bunch of young people on the staff.
Right.
When Healy got in '04 and '05, he hired a ton of police. Mayor Fulop has hired quite a number of police officers as well. So, but he's also done a lot of promotions, a lot of detective. The detectives have been made.
Yes, sergeant.
And the
is
Jersey
sergeant
Journal.
a detective?
The Jersey Journal. No, what's that?
Is it from sergeant to detective, or detective to sergeant?
Detective is not a superior officer. Detective, you don't have to take a test. It's simply made, and that's why there was a lot of controversy with the last round of detectives, many of whom were politically connected, as the Jersey Journal documented. But let's talk about both detectives and superior officers, sergeant, lieutenant, captain, deputy chief, all of which you have to take a civil service exam, and you can only take a certain amount, and they have to typically be taken sequential order, unless there's a reason you could skip them for some
well, that was the abuse.
Like
if they wanted number 26 to be
promoted,
right. Promote
so
all
here's
of
the
them.
thing that addresses that: a table of organization. If you look at my white paper on policing, on public safety, this department, first of all, when he was a councilman, he said we need a table of organization. It is the absolute way to evade or avoid these political appointments of people to superior positions. And it's an outrage that it's not been done. And it happens still to this day, where people are going down the list to get to 25 or to 23.
Right.
We have to get this one's nephew or this one's cousin.
Yeah, right.
And
this one contributed so much to my campaign.
Not only does it hurt your budget, right, because you're bloating the budget.
It takes them off the streets. It takes them off the streets.
Even worse than all of that, it devastates the morale in the police department. Everyone in this police department knows that you have to be a political hack to really succeed.
Right.
You have to be a contributor or something. And in the first year of the administration, it was outrageous, right? I mean, everyone who was on the wrong side was getting the worst assignments. The people on the right side were getting the right assignments. Really shameful practices.
Because it was that quest to run for governor and raise money.
Well, that's a whole nother story. But he had a leadership and that he put in that was groomed him. They groomed each other for 8 years looking for that mayoralty. And when they got in, they repaid the people that were helpful, and they punished the people that weren't.
Well, right. I agree with that. Well, changing to another topic like the property revaluation, which is a huge issue, and the city canceling the last one because of Brian O'Reilly, which was just a joke, and the state superior court refusing to hear Supreme Court refusing to hear the appeal. I mean, what are your thoughts on all of that? Besides the fact we lost $1 million, and we have to pay plus interest. I think the Jersey Journal said we owe them $119,000 worth, $115,000 worth of interest on top of that $1 million.
So let me tell you my thoughts on that. My thoughts on the reval debacle are that out of all the negative things that Steve Fulop has done, it's the most outrageous, shameful,
wasteful.
It's more than that. It was really a crime against the poorest people in Jersey City. He was Robin Hood in reverse. Now, the assessments in Jersey City had been slowly but surely getting out of whack over a period of many years when several mayors didn't do revals. They did not reassess the properties in order to ascertain what their appropriate revaluation was. During that period of time, properties downtown primarily had raised in value substantially, while many other areas of the city had not raised in value, so that their assessments were out of whack. Finally, this apparent lack of equity in assessment became so clear that during the Healy administration, the move was made to undertake the reval. When Fulop won, it was very close to being done. He unilaterally, and as we've seen now by a court, illegally canceled it. And there's a couple of things. He made many assertions about the rationale behind it, that it was going to hurt values in Jersey City because downtown would get hit, and that's the most valuable part, and it would have a domino effect.
Did he actually say that, though?
Yes, he absolutely said it.
All right. Well,
he absolutely said it.
My 2013 show where he came on when he was running for mayor is on YouTube, and you'll be able to watch this on YouTube,
He probably said it on there. Look it up.
Well, he said it would.
That was back then.
He said it would be devastating to the city. He didn't necessarily say
he
downtown.
He did, but the reason why he said it was devastating to the city was his insane rationale was, well, downtown's going to get hit the most, and since downtown's the most valuable properties, the property will go down there, and that will have a domino effect and lower values throughout the city. That was his reasoning, as if he has some sort of expertise in real estate markets, which he doesn't. But what the real consequence of it was, as Jersey City Together has pointed out, as the Star Ledger pointed out, and I was banging this drum, early on before others, and I was on NJTV.
He knew it.
What it really did was, I think the Star Ledger said it best. Tom Moran, one of the leading op-ed columnists in New Jersey. In Jersey City, poor blacks subsidize rich whites.
Right.
So the poorest homeowners, where the majority of the residents are minorities, were paying a disproportionately high property tax, while wealthier white residents were paying a disproportionately low property tax. And it all resulted because of his illegal cancellation, which a judge said was based upon lies. I mean, the judge found the assertions by the city to be in bad faith. And think about what would have occurred if he did the reval at the right time. First and foremost, many homeowners in the lower income areas of the city would have paid thousands of dollars less every year. So he stole thousands of dollars out of their pockets. The downtown people would have had their properties reassessed at a time when it was a little bit less of a plateau.
It was before it really took off.
Yeah, I mean, the real estate market went down in 2007, and then because of the Great Recession, and then really in 12, 13, 14, we've seen this really crazy, out of control, skyrocketing, especially downtown. So they probably wouldn't have been hit with the same
they would have been
increase.
Hit with lower,
So
I think so
he's
too.
really, in a sense, hurt everybody by doing this. And to me, it was an incredible, horrific lack of leadership. And I really think that the one reason he did it, because he was trying to run for governor. He believes that the reval was going to create some destabilization, and people would have been upset, and probably true. He looked at the 88, what occurred in 88. He heard the stories.
For Tony Cucci.
And he said, I don't want that happening in my home base while I'm waging a campaign for governor. And I believe that's why he canceled it.
No, I believe personally he knew he needed to raise a lot of money to run for governor, and he wanted to continue the practice of giving out 30-year tax abatements, especially to KRE and Kushner in Journal Square, which he gave away. And if the people of downtown got hit with a $30,000 tax bill back then, now it could even be higher than that, they're going to say, what are you still giving out tax abatements for? And I really think he wanted to continue with the tax abatements, because he gave one over here, another $25,000, $30,000, especially the rentals. The rentals are really cheap. One Journal Square does $1,200 to $1,400 per unit per year. What are you going to get with that?
Oh, you mean the revenue?
The revenue stream. And then also he's floating $30 million worth of bonds.
And the rents are like $3,000 a month.
Oh, yeah. They started like $2,500. The one journal, we get 2 weeks worth of rent for taxes. The homeowner has to, how many months do they pay to pay their tax bill? I really believe that it was the continuation of the tax abatements, and the people downtown would have finally gone to City Hall and said, no more tax abatements.
Well, let me give you a little riff on the abatements.
When they pay nothing towards the schools.
Let's talk about that for 2 seconds, the abatements. The KRE abatement, I think it was appropriate to give an abatement to Journal Square to get that area going. And I think
cheap, though?
No. Let me finish.
Okay.
I think that without the abatement, a project wouldn't have occurred. And the original abatement for MEPT, they got hit with the Great Recession. That's the one that's now Jared Kushner. And don't confuse the two Kushners. There's Charlie and Jared, sometimes the bad Kushners, some people call them. KRE, I think, is a completely, they're same family, but they're a much more different, history of development and very reputable. Now, having said that, they came in to get an abatement in April or May or March of 13, and I think Healy backed off a little bit and said, you know what, this is the election, come back later. They came back later. Of course, Healy wasn't the mayor, and they got a better abatement.
Yeah, they got cheaper.
How the redevelopment area bond came in was unbelievable. That's taking a supersized abatement and then injecting it with steroids. It's like supersized beyond and squared.
Yeah, so we get nothing. We're going to get nothing.
Essentially nothing. Now, Fulop, a couple broken promises on abatements real quick.
Remember that when you're standing on the PATH train platform and you can't get in.
First of all, he said, I'm against abatements downtown as a councilman. He never voted for any. He was against abatements by and large. He gets in, he gave more abatements in his first term than Healy gave in his second, and twice as many downtown than Healy did. Fulop's first term versus Healy's second.
And the
he
market's
promised, I'm giving the money to the
hot.
And the market's hot as a frying pan. Then he says, I'm going to give the revenue to the schools. Broken promise. I wrote legislation to get it done. Chris Gadsden, who's running for my council slate in Ward B, one of the great council people we have running with us, all good people.
Well, at least he's an independent thinker.
He really is.
And we need independent thinkers.
That's one of the things I think. Some of the people tell me, oh, you don't have enough discipline in your council, slate. And I said, I don't want discipline.
You mean control.
I don't want discipline all the time. I want, look, hopefully they have the same sort of values, and they do, thankfully.
Yeah.
But I like them to challenge me, like Esther Whitner.
Yes.
We have debates on things, and to me that's healthy.
Right. Where the Fulop ticket, he only picks people who he knows he can control, and who typically have never been to a city council meeting and have no idea how it works. And Esther is certainly, by far one of them.
She's been to too many.
She's been to a lot of them and is extremely experienced. Definitely a plus. Two other little issues I want to bring up. I don't know how little they are. One of them has to do with the CarePoint contract that Mayor Fulop was trying to push a couple of years back for the EMT contract. And the other one is most recently in the Jersey Journal. It was about the city had put out a request for proposal for a city energy consulting bid, and you have the business administrator and his assistant who had taped a phone conversation where the powers that be had come into their office wanting them, I think Dominic Panafolo, or his last name, trying to steer the contract to a specific vendor. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Because both of them are trying to steer to a specific vendor.
Well, the CarePoint one was especially atrocious, that you're taking a contract away from the nonprofit medical center to CarePoint that charges the highest medical bills in America.
Because they're for-profit.
And it's for-profit, and documented in the New York Times. The medical center's been handling the emergency services ambulance contract since horses were taking the ambulances around Jersey City. They do an excellent job. But what was really outrageous is that we discovered CarePoint had given $1 million secret contribution through a fake corporation, a dummy corporation, that was created on a Monday, right? The corporation on Tuesday gave $1 million to Steve Fulop Super PAC. No one knew who the shareholders were. The company never did anything else in its life, never made a product, never provided a service. It just hid $1 million contribution while Fulop was trying to give him a contract. Corrupt. This newest revelation that's come out, which I believe was an inadvertent voicemail, and there's a tape apparently in the city's control that the mayor has. Apparently he's listened to it, where city officials are corruptly trying to steer a contract. And he claims it's maybe not a big deal. He should just release the tape and we would know better.
Yeah, well, they had put out a request for proposal, and so the whole purpose of that is to have an arm's length transaction, and here you have some of the senior people in his administration trying to push one particular vendor.
And if that's true, as two people have testified under oath,
right.
Why is one of them still there, and why did the other one remain as the chief of staff for nearly a year thereafter. It, sometimes the cover up is worse than the crime.
We have a little bit more time, okay? Because I do want people to know why they should vote for you, and then maybe we'll ask a couple more questions.
Look, I think I have good plans to address the biggest problems in Jersey City. And I know we've been talking a lot about Fulop, and I've been trying to focus on the issues. I've had a series of town halls. We talk about how can we address the problems with crime in a city where we've seen the homicide rate double in the last 4 years. That's right. It's gone up 100%. Every single year since the Fulop administration has been in, the homicide rate is substantially higher. We have a plan for community policing to get cops out of the squad cars, out of the precincts, into the streets, to walk the beat, but also change the mindset from a warrior mindset to a guardian mindset. We can't be acting like an occupying army. And when you really change the training and the philosophy of the police, you not only see crime reduce, you see relations with the community improve. And it's so important, especially in this post-Ferguson age. And it's been done from Camden to LA. The homicide capital of America, Camden, has seen a sharp reduction in crime with community policing. Los Angeles, which was the poster child, if you will, of malfeasance and bad relations between police and community in the 90s with the riots, now enjoys great relations. We could do it in Jersey City. Affordability is arguably the cornerstone of my campaign, the 5th most expensive city in America to rent an apartment. It's out of control. It's nuts. It's crazy. We're going to, for homeowners, really reduce spending. I did it as the head of the law department in Jersey City. We cut our budget. We stopped wasting money on expensive outside lawyers and deadwood attorneys that were collecting big paychecks and not carrying their weight in the courts. And we did a better job with a lower budget. I'll do the same thing for the city. We're going to cut taxes, and we're going to create an Office of Affordability to connect lower income residents and working class residents to affordable accommodations. We're going to extend rent stabilization to thousands of residents that have none. And we're going to require developers that build in the hottest markets to create more affordable housing. We're going to make Jersey City more affordable. We can welcome some development with controls, make sure it's not taxing our infrastructure, and not pricing the people who were born and raised here or who even moved here in the last 10 years to avoid high rents in Manhattan or Brooklyn. We can't chase these people out. People who love Jersey City should not be forced out because they can't afford it.
Mm-hmm. And what about the schools? I mean, that's another thing. I mean, the city keeps 95% of all the tax abatements, and the county gets 5%.
Look,
and just in July, the state cut $8.4 million out of the Jersey City school budget, and they have had an increase of 1,200 students in the last 2 years alone. I have 2 shows on the Board of Ed candidates, and you really, I mean, that's going to become a serious issue.
Well, the issue already is a serious issue. I mean, where I stand on it is simple to find. I wrote an ordinance that says you have to dedicate a tax abatement revenue to the schools, consistent with the way conventional taxes are.
Which is about 27, 28%.
Exactly. So exact same thing. I think it would...
and that would come out of the city's portion.
Well, yes, and then Yun wanted to change it to just make a surcharge on the abatement so that basically the minimum abatement you would give, when I say Yun, Councilman Yun from the Heights and Ward 8, so basically the minimum abatement you would give instead of 10% is 12%. So to me, that's a no-brainer. We have to do it. Maybe it would make the city less willing to grant abatements all the time because sometimes they're doing better with an abatement than they would otherwise.
They're always doing better with an abatement. That's why they do it.
And look, on my council slate, not only do I have Gadsden, who drafted that legislation, who's a vice principal of Lincoln High School.
And where are we on that?
But I've got Michael Wins. Hopefully it's going to get introduced to the next council meeting. I've also got Michael Wins, who is deputy administrator, classroom teacher, 25 years, former principal of a high school. So I think we're going to have a lot of good things to do with the coordinating on education.
Okay, because I think that's going to be really critical because there's no doubt that the state wants to cut the funding. And there's only so much they can do because there's a big issue now with maintenance of the existing schools. So they're going to need more money, absolutely more money. All right. Well, I appreciate your being on the show today. Thank you so much. And your ballot position is 3. Well, it'll be flashed up on the screen.
3.
Plus all of your candidates. And then I guess all the independents are in a separate column. Is that how it works?
No. It works in a different way where the mayor candidates over here at large are over there. There's no columns.
There's no columns?
And then the ward is another spot.
Oh, all right. So you definitely have to study that sample ballot, that's for sure. And don't forget, it's all in the general election Tuesday, November 7th. Thank you so much for watching. Tell your friends and neighbors about Talking Politics. You can watch it on YouTube or you can watch it on the website where there are over 90 shows now on various topics. So thank you so much and good night. Thank you.
Thank you.